This is a magical way to end the day, the second day of Conch International Film Festival 2022, with a panel discussion that we all know is really, really necessary. The do's and don'ts of pitching a script. I mean, we had this amazing final draft class. We had an amazing series of conversations. So, how do you get the work bought? Now, today we have this unique experience of having incoming panelists because one of our panelists is having a technical issue, and everybody in this room knows what I mean. It happens. But right now, Nadhege Ptah is going to begin this conversation with the beautiful, amazing Rosalind Y. Jackson. Now, if you didn't attend our earlier conversation with Mr. Duke, I'm going to introduce you to Nadhege right now. Nadhege is of course, an award jurist at Conch International Film Festival 2022. If you looked at our website, you've seen her beautiful face. She's an award-winning actor, writer, producer, director, dancer. I can go on, but I'm going to put a period on that sentence just for now. Multi-talented, she's a recipient of Best Actress of the Year by All Star Music Awards for her performance on Showtime. Viewers can see her in recurring roles on Showtime's television series City on a Hill. She runs her own production company, MAAT Films, and her produced works have landed distribution with what? CBS, PBS, ABC, NBC, Comcast, Fox, and I don't have enough fingers for all the rest. Welcome, Nadhege, and take it over. It is now your world, and I'm just going to tune in.
Oh my goodness, we can tell you're an actress. Thank you for that dramatic introduction. Hi everyone. I am going to be having this wonderful intimate conversation with Rosalind. Unfortunately, Tracy's mother transitioned this week, so she will not be joining us. And I think Kalima, they're trying to work the technical issues, so hopefully she can join us, but it will be myself and Rosalind at the moment for the do's and don'ts of pitching for TV and film. And Rosalind is a creative executive for Edmonds Entertainment. She's the president and CEO for WordyGirl Entertainment, a multimedia company specializing in TV, film production, script consulting, and podcasting. Yes, so let's give it up for Rosalind Y. Jackson. And the first thing is I'm just going to jump in, Rosalind, and just ask questions. A lot of people are aware of Edmonds Entertainment. Um, so I'm just hearing, are you hearing an echo on your end?
Nope.
Okay. For me to pick up my headphones, I would have to step away, Magali. So I'm just going to continue.
No worries. It came in and came out. No worries.
Okay,
Continue.
okay. Woo. Well, for those who are in astrology, Mercury's in the shadows is about to go into retrograde. So this is usually what Mercury does for those who understand astrology. But Rosalind,
Yes.
you could be the most amazing writer, and you have a writer's background in the world. But if you can't pitch your idea, so let's explore the juicy nuggets of what a successful pitch for film and television does. Because Edmonds Entertainment have they're known for soul food and a series of other things. So what are the essential ingredients in putting a pitch package together?
Well, you want to make sure that it's if you're sending a pitch deck, you want to make sure it's professionally done. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to hire somebody to do it, but if you need to do it yourself, just make it, look as presentable as possible. And you want to make sure you have all the key elements of, what your project is, your title, a log line, a brief synopsis. And then you want to make sure you have, you get into the character breakdowns where you start describing, the main characters, what are their traits, what are their goals, things like that about the characters. Then you can go into their like the story itself, like focusing in on the the tone of the story or the theme. And then you can start getting into your story as far as how it's shaped. Like for instance, you can talk about opening. Then you want to go into like the key points, like your inciting incident. You want to talk about your major plot points. What's your midpoint? What's going on in the middle of the film to keep interest. And then you can wrap it up and talk about what the end of the film is, the resolution. And so yeah, I would just say keep it brief. Don't get too in detail, because then you start to lose your the person you're pitching to if you get too in detail with the story. So just hit your key points and get out.
So my question is, what would be, how many, do you go by how many pages? What would be like a sufficient amount that's not too small or too much?
Mm-hmm. For us, we don't go by like specific page numbers, but I would say if you wanted to, to make sure that you have a well-rounded pitch deck, I'd say about maybe 5 to 7 pages. I would say stay away from like super long pitch decks. They're like 15, 20 pages, because like that's a lot for, somebody.
That's a Bible now.
Yeah. And I've seen them that long. So,
wow.
It's kind of makes you want to stop reading because there's so much information. So I would say maybe like 5 to 7, probably 10 max. I think that's a good range.
So what's the most important? And I'm going to come to you, Kalima. Thank you. I'm glad they solved the technical thing. So is visual more important, or the substance is more important? Because sometimes you may see the visual is so outstanding and it captivates you, but it may not have the substance. And then on the other hand, you may have the substance, but the visual, it's okay. It's all right. What's more important or pertinent, or should there be a balance in both?
Is that for me or for Kalima?
For you, and then I'm going to introduce.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was for Kalima. I would say you really need both, because if you send in something that doesn't look good visually, it kind of screams amateur. So that's kind of a turn off. I mean, you don't have to be a complete professional to do this, because people have to start somewhere. But just think of submitting something if you're in school. You wouldn't turn in something kind of shoddy for a school assignment. So just kind of think of it in the same way. Make sure it looks neat and as professional as possible. And then when you get into the substance, that's where you really have to drive it home, because you may grab attention with visuals and things like that, but what are you saying in the pitch deck? Are you keeping my attention? Are you hitting those points that we're looking for to determine if it's a great story?
Okay, beautiful. So everyone, thank you. I'm going to introduce you to Kalima Gaston. Thank you. We know technology is not bliss, but you made it. She hails from Jamaica, Queens in the Big Apple, but currently resides in the City of Angels, Los Angeles, California. So she left New York, guys, us New Yorkers. She's been driven by her passion for the performing arts, storytelling, and film production from a young age. She honed her natural gifts from formal training of acting for film and theater at the New York Conservatory for Dramatic Arts. Since then, she's done a variety of work with off-Broadway plays, My Stomping Ground, commercials, voiceovers, web series, and feature films. She's also the founder and creator of the Screening Room ATL LA, a premier film screening event for independent films. She's produced content for, I'm always saying Tubi, but it's Tubi, right?
Tubi, yeah.
Tubi, Revolt, there's so many coming out, like Emory School of Ethics and her own film. She's looking forward to where God will take her. Okay. Thank you for joining us. I'm gonna give Rosalind a break. I'm gonna let you come in and your voice into this thing, and I want to optimize it so that we leave room for our audience,
Of
for
course.
filmmakers and directors and people who do most likely have, of course, they have their own projects, maybe future projects, and want to hear
Mhm.
from you guys who have been pitched to, right? Or who've been in the
Mhm.
pitch room and you have probably seen a plethora of things. So, Kalima, what is the best way someone could prepare for a pitch meeting?
Honestly, I think from as an artist, just in any type of thing, it's practice. Like find friends, find other people who are in the industry and ask, can I pitch this to you and just see like what their advice might be, what would be some good feedback. Record yourself doing it. Make sure you're comfortable. Make sure you feel confident in what you're talking about, but also make sure you know your material. So that way you're not necessarily reading, but you are fully embodying it. No different than if you're acting. You don't want to be reading from a page that hunks you down, you know? But if you have a presentation and it's good visuals, then perform, really tell your story, really go for it and make the world real, make the characters real, and just have a good time.
Yeah. Now, and also here, bring your authentic self.
Absolutely,
Right.
because that's what
So,
they want to see is who are you in this project, or why should we get this project from you?
your essence. So, what are the components of building a dream team?
Hmm. I think one of the components is definitely finding people who you resonate with as a person, not as an artist, but just I like you as a person. And how do we vibe, And now on top of that, what is our artistry? How do we contribute? How do we add value? I think one of the biggest things too is being honest about what you need, what you want, whether or not there's a budget, just so you're transparent from the jump, so everybody knows where we're coming from and we can really fill the spaces that are needed in those projects, or coming together for a business or coming together for a pitch, just knowing what everybody does and being clear that we're not all doing the same thing. Everybody has a job to do and a position to play. And so finding people who kind of offset your weaknesses.
Absolutely. I was going to ask the question where I know people like when people who are just smarter than them in all areas. And some people are fearful of that. But you knowing more than me helps me to shine, you know?
Absolutely.
Um, you know, the, and that's what makes a great leader. They're not fearful or feel intimidated that
Exactly.
those people are more knowledgeable than because it helps you. So we've heard the horror stories, right? People pitched. A couple of years later, they see their ideas on TV or on film. And
Yeah.
isn't there a way? Because ideas, we all, four or five people can have the same ideas, but then it has a different angle, right? But you've heard the horror stories.
Of course.
And
We've lived the horror stories.
okay, and people have lived it, right? And how, is there a way to protect your intellectual property from pitching exposure?
I would say you can never fully protect intellectual property, because it's not really anyone's, if I'm being honest. Like, and I feel like as a spiritual person and someone who is a creative, when an idea comes to you, it's not really even yours. It is yours to do something with. But if you don't do anything with it, it will go and find a source that will create it. You know what I mean? It will find a way to come into fruition, whether or not you're a part of it. But when we have great ideas, a lot of times we sit on it, or we're telling everyone, but we haven't copywritten it. So I would say one of the biggest things that if you cannot protect your IP fully, because you still want to be open to attracting the right people, but you also want to be open to pitching it and getting it out there. And even with that, it could be something very similar to someone else's idea. And they say, oh, I only took this one portion, but all of this I already had. And that may be true. So either you can go about it by doing your own thing, or just make sure you fully copyright, register your stuff with WGA, do whatever you can to have documentation and paper trail and trademarks and showing like, this is my idea. I've had it for this long, as they call it, I guess, like the ghetto copyright, where you email it to yourself or email it to an account. So that
Back
way
in the
it's
days.
shown.
Yeah.
Right. So it's shown like, hey, look, I clearly had this from this time frame and now it's here and this person took it. So I think that's the
Okay.
best way.
So Rosalind,
Mhm.
like I've heard people where it's like they didn't change a thing. They literally copied,
Mm.
and somebody seen their work copied word for word.
Yeah.
It's like, how can someone protect themselves against a big machine, lawyer up, right?
Well, like Kalima said, you really can't, guarantee that someone won't try to make that same, idea. I think it's pretty rare for somebody to have an identical, project from something that they've seen someone else present. I think that would be pretty bold of somebody to do that. And I don't think like a professional company, like a professional studio or something would be that bold to, do something word for word. Not to say it hasn't happened. I don't know if it personally happened, but it may have. But I think a lot of times what ends up happening when people feel like their project has been, copied or stolen, it's usually because they are similar in overall idea. Like for instance, it may be, a story, let's say about a woman who she works in the big city, she has a big corporate job, and she goes to a small town USA, and finds love. Well, that's pretty much the blueprint for Hallmark stories and things like that.
Anything.
But in the detail, I don't think two different, writers would tell that same idea in the same way. That's when character traits come in. That's when the character's goals, the plot, things like that start to differ. But I think when you're new in the business, you will automatically feel like, oh my God, they stole my story, when it's the idea was something that is, a pretty common idea. So and we're all, we all as humans, we pretty much have the same basic experiences, and we all tend to think alike, except for when you start getting into our, individual lives, then things start to differ. But overall,
and there are differences. There are differences in what might be similar. But you have heard where, let's just say somebody pitched to Netflix, and then an idea that's uniquely theirs, and then now it's on. They've been rejected, and then now it's on Netflix, and that's a tough machine to battle, because they have the money for lawyers and everything, and legitimately that story could have been stolen. That project could have been stolen. I mean, you hear a lot of things in lawsuits, but I do agree with both of you and Kalima. Like, you just have to have faith, and because especially for the small man who's coming into this sea of big networks, it can be scary, right? It can be very scary. So let's have you ladies ever pitched, and if you have, what have you learned from your failures?
I'll go, I guess. One of the things I think from anything when it comes, especially to our art, is not taking it personally and knowing that it's going to come back around. This industry is very small. And once you're kind of in to a certain level, you realize, people aren't pitching if you just started creating stuff yesterday. So at that point, okay, these are the people who I'm going to probably be working with at some rate. So I might want to stay polite, even if they said no. I might want to stay, mindful and kind, and knowing that this no doesn't mean no forever. It just probably means no right now. Come back in 6 months. So that's something that I think, no matter what it is, realizing and failing, is that it's going to come back around. So you want to remain a good energy about it and a good maintaining of a relationship about it, because that same person could say, you know what, 6 months ago, that wasn't the right thing for us. But now that we remember, we talked to you, can you come back again and talk about this time? Because the industry is always changing. What they're looking for is always changing.
So you would just say practice the law of detachment.
Just don't take it personally.
Don't take it personal. Rosalind, since you're on the side where people are pitching to you, right? Any shareable funny moments that occurred during pitching, and you're like, what?
Yes. Well, this one was it wasn't an official pitch, but someone had called the company, trying to let us know about their project. So it was a brief pitch. And I listened to what they had to say, and I could tell right away it wasn't something that was going to be a good fit for us. And so the person got, they took it personally, like you said, Kaleem. They did take it personally. So I could tell he was kind of offended. And so he said to me, he said, well, I'm sorry, there's a helicopter coming by.
We got the ambulance in New York, so it's okay.
It's our ghetto birds. Ghetto birds.
This was the time we had our stories filmed, and we had put out the movie Who's Your Caddy? So the guy said, well, I don't understand why you don't like my story when you guys put out Who's Your Caddy? And that was, a crazy, film. And I was like, well, you might not want to insult the company that you're calling to try to pitch your project to.
Yeah.
So this goes back to Kalima talking about taking it personally. So you mentioned something that's key. You said it's not a right fit for your company. Can you discuss that? Because it may not be a right fit for your company, but it may be another fit for another person. So
absolutely.
Can you speak about understanding companies and fit, like knowing who you're pitching to and see if your project is a fit? Can you go into a little bit of details for that so that the audience can understand that aspect, so that you don't go pitching all over the place and really do your research where you may be in alignment. Your story may be in an alignment with what they're looking for because of the audience they serve.
Right. Yes, that's very important, because you want to make sure that your project fits that. If you're pitching to a production company, you want to make sure that's the right production company, because you don't want to waste time pitching to, say, what's his name? I'm blanking on his name. The one that did Get Out.
Jordan Peele.
Yeah, you wouldn't go to Jordan Peele's company and pitch a 17th century romance. He doesn't do those. So you may want to, find out who specializes in the horror films and pitch to them. At Edmonds, we generally tend to do like dramas having to do with family or romantic comedy type stories. So you wouldn't pitch a slasher film to us either, so because that's not what we do.
So basically, they'll come to you for horror. That's not true. Yes.
Right.
So really that comes down to doing your research, though, and knowing where things belong, like knowing who you're talking to, what kind of things that they're looking for, and doing your work before you even get the opportunity to call someone or to pitch in front of them.
So let me ask you a question. Somebody has a great idea. What comes first? Should they do the research, then come up with an idea, and then know who they're going to pitch to, or that idea really spend time in developing it and then pitch? Should it be the creative idea first, or do the research and then come up with a creative idea? What should come first, the chicken or the egg?
I say the creative. You always want to make sure that script is as engaging and as tight as you can get.
Beautiful. So let's talk about gender treatment.
Okay.
When it comes to pitching, is the room mostly male, white dominated? If so, why? And is there a difference if a woman walks in the room and she's pitching than when a man comes into a room? So let's put gender and race. Does it play an essential role in terms of getting through the doors and the story?
Well, for us, that it's not the case for our company, because we're Black owned and we're female Black owned. So when people come to pitch, they're pitching to us, pretty much all Black women. And then the people who are coming in are usually Black people. So, we also get, Caucasian people coming in with pitches and things like that too. But so with our company, we're a little different. So we usually don't, have that issue. But I do know that issue does exist, for, other companies, especially companies that are, more mainstream. They tend to have pretty much, white male executives. So heard the stories about how, if you're going to those type of companies as a person of color, filmmaker, they've had instances where they get shut down in the room because the executives, they don't understand where they're coming from in their story, how to relate to it if it's a story that's focused on, Black life.
Kalima.
I think that, this is not the day and age anymore of just the TV networks where, I'm sure it's mostly cis white men. And now we have so many more platforms and so many more opportunities to create things for our own selves, like All Black. We've always had BET. Like we said, we have, her company. There's just so many more options. So I think that it's not as black and white as it used to be. But I do feel like lately, as I'm seeing, there's way more women development executives now than there were, 3-4 years ago. And more and more African-American women executives. And we see that all the time between Deadline and Variety popping up like, oh, this person's now the vice president. This person's now the junior development executive. This person's an exec, and it's always Black women. So I think that says a lot about where this is going. And it's really interesting because nowadays, a lot of the content they're looking for is centered around Black women.
Okay. Because I was going to ask this other question. Now, you're right about all the executives and opportunities are opening to Blacks and Black women. You think that'll make an impact? Because I know there's been in history, even though they're in those positions, a lot of the power is the unseen. So they have challenges in attempting to make the impact to open the doors. So do you think, okay, we're happy, but will they be able to be effective and make the impact without the those who are above them and saying it's the apology for because we haven't been in those positions, but yet you don't have the power. So do you think they're in this position and unable to have the power? Because there's an invisible force that's above them too that they have to respond to. So sometimes it's just the illusion. So do you think that they'll be able to make the impact so that more of our stories, like they'll be able to say, yes, we want this show, we want that show to be on television, or, they basically have to follow an order above them. What do you ladies think?
Well, I think it is a good thing that we are seeing more Black female executives who can get people in the door, where before, it was tough to even just get in the door. So I think it's an advancement to be able to be walked in by those Black female executives. However, they usually don't have green light power. So, they do have to answer to the studio or the network. And that can be, where the snag happens sometimes. So the next step is for us to get Black female executives who have green light power.
It's true.
But
so we're still having to break the glass ceiling because the power is really in the green light.
It is. But it's also in being able to be brought to someone who can greenlight. That matters so much as well. We can't get to the step of being greenlit until we have a product and then someone who will walk us in. So although the women may not have that access just yet, I feel like the fact that there are more and more Black women executives is right there. That's already the access in itself. We're getting closer and closer to being the ones who are that. And that says a lot.
Okay,
Yep.
so now the next goal is to get those green light powers, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, ladies, I interviewed Bill Duke earlier today,
Mhm.
and he was talking about, yeah, you can have the great idea, but they want to know their return in investment. It's about
That's
the
true.
money, right?
Yeah.
Um, how important? How does somebody who has like this great idea and it's a great story, but don't have the celebrity attached to it? Because he did talk about that, right?
Mhm.
How do they get in the door if they're unable to get some heavyweight names into their project? What's what steps can they take? If any suggestion, because it's a phenomenal story, but they don't have a celebrity attached to it to help
Mhm.
get in that door. Because isn't an agent enough? Like, what can you tell our filmmakers and our audience who are listening to you?
I would say you have to network.
Mhm.
You have to get out there and meet people. Unfortunately, it is all about who you know, and like more importantly, who knows you. So I would say make sure you're networking. Yeah.
Can you give
Yeah.
steps
That's
on networking for someone who really doesn't know? There's an art to it, and part
hmm
of it is you don't want to come off inauthentic.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
how can they become authentic as
Hmm.
well as doing the networking at the same time and not
Hmm.
appearing like someone who's begging, right? Or wants something, because that can turn someone off. But how
Hmm.
can they do it authentically, trying to get to these steps to have those doors open who don't have the pipeline and the access?
I would say find events to go to,
hmm
like TV film events. If something that you may even have to pay for to attend, just so you get that opportunity to be in the same room with people who work in the industry, who are the executives and people like that. So um, it may take a little bit of research to find out where these type of events go down. I know, we're just now getting back to having events that are in person. So now it's getting better. Whereas when COVID was going on, that was pretty much shot. But now, it's picking back up. So I would say do your research, find out what events are going on. Again, if you have to, pay a little money to attend, I'd say that's a good investment to get you in the room. And then, like, once you are face to face with someone, an executive or whatnot, you know, um, they are there to network. So, they are expecting you to, present them with, projects and things like that. But I would say, make sure you're professional with it, make it quick. Just give a little brief introduction of what your project is and, say, hey, would you mind taking a look at it and maybe get their card or, give them your card or whatnot and see what they say. If they say yes, then just send it over. Be brief and let them know where you met, and that's pretty much it. Then it's in their hands, and I would say follow up
True.
maybe 2 or 3 weeks later or so, and they may not have gotten to it by then, because
hmm
we are really busy. We have a lot of submissions to get through, so if
hmm
an executive doesn't get right back to you, don't take it that as a no. But you want to, do the delicate balance between when you should follow up. Don't be like, you know, emailing them every day or every other day. Just balance it out. Check back in if they say, "Oh, I haven't read it yet." Maybe give them another week or two. Just
Be
play
patient.
it. Yeah.
You want to answer that? Because how do I was going to ask you, Rosalind, how do they not become annoying?
Mhm.
It's a delicate balance trying to
Mhm.
forge this relationship and having the opportunity, the access to the access, right? To eventually get that door open. So Kalima, do you have anything different to say? And
Yeah.
so about 2 more questions, and then I want to open the door for the audience to ask
Okay.
questions.
I think one of the biggest things about networking, so one, I'm here in LA now, as you all know, and I did live in Atlanta before I moved to here from New York. And I started an event called Screening Room ATL. Screening Room ATL is one of the biggest networking events that started out there before so many other ones that are now there are doing what they're doing. But it was, you have to go where there's a need. You know what I mean? Like if you know what you offer and it's needed in certain spaces, go to those spaces. Don't try to go to oversaturated spaces or spaces that are just popular or places where people are talking about it. If you're the writer and there is a filmmaking event, you might want to go to that event versus the actor showcase. You know what I mean? Because you don't necessarily need that or those kind of connections. So I would say one, being intentional about what kind of events you're going to, but also realizing that a lot of networking is not about what you need. It's about how can you offer something to someone. And that's the part that people miss the bar on so much. And that's something I express so much as Screening Room. Is like, I know you guys are here. I know you all want to see who can help you do something, but also when you're doing that, remember to ask what they need first and then ask for your ask. You know, like don't just come out like, oh, what do you do? Who's doing what? The one thing that Rosalind was really saying is don't come off desperate. Don't come off like somebody who needs something so bad, but also as if the person who you're asking for it from isn't valuable, that they don't have people asking them all the time. So you have to come in with the idea of, okay, I know that this person's a casting director. Their job is to do blah, blah, blah. So what can I do to help make their job easier? Or how can I add value to whatever they're working on or support it or something? Stop coming in with just an ask. Also remembering that networking a lot of times takes 7 points of contacts before someone remembers you. It's something I learned, 7 points of contact before someone really remembers you. Now that seems like a lot, but it's something I learned when I was doing in the service industry as a server. They tell you, try to make sure you're making 7 points of contact with your table. And even when I thought about that, I'm like, that's a lot. Like, that seems like too many times. But it doesn't have to be every time for a long time. If you're going to follow up with just hope you're having a great weekend. I saw this thing that you were doing. I'm supporting it. I checked it out. I see what you're doing and the content that you're making already, and leave it at that. The next 2-3 times you reach out, hey, I saw that you're now doing this. Like, it shows that you're keeping interest in what they're doing, not necessarily trying to ask for something. But someone who sees that you're supporting them and rooting for them is now going to eventually say, damn, how can I support you or root for you? Because you really are showing love towards me. So that's the main rule that I would say is always try to show love first before you ask for love back from someone.
Beautiful. And that's the key too. It's a give and take.
It is.
So I think that's where your authenticity can come through.
Always.
In building relationship, because they say relationship is everything. And then it takes time. And that's the thing, it takes time because people have to trust. Right? And just for you also, when you're looking to attaining something from that person, you will want to also trust. Don't just assume because they're have achieved a lot, are they in alignment with you?
Exactly.
The energy, right? Because everybody's not nice. Right?
But also everybody isn't a part of the team or the tribe you're trying to create.
Exactly.
That same dream team we talked about.
Yes.
If this person isn't in alignment with what you're doing, like she said, sci-fi, and you're doing horror, why are you reaching out to them and harassing them about something that really doesn't help them at all?
Right.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. So let's talk about, this is Conch International Film Festival, which is to help to bring visibility on Caribbean stories. We're in America, and it's already difficult in terms of Black American stories sustaining and getting their shine, because Black American stories, is a lot to tell that hasn't been told, because they like to recycle and make us, and the story is narrow about us, but we're like this breadth, right? But now I've noticed there's been an impact with African stories that are doing well in the entertainment landscape. But somehow the other Black diaspora story, like the Caribbean story, a lot of Caribbean have contributed to the Black American stories because of the families who came here, who migrated here, and who had children here, like Malcolm X, you know, and you hear Marcus Garvey. A lot of them have Caribbean roots who made impact in the Black American stories. But we don't really see as much. And then I know Danny Glover for years has fought to try just to get the Haitian Revolution story told. And of course, that's a little scary because we say Haiti, period.
Right.
You think about the first Black continent that just got their independence. And so, can Caribbean stories make an impact like the African stories, or why is it's not? Is it something that they're not interested in? Is it something that's not sellable? What can you say? Because a lot of our filmmakers in the audience are doing Caribbean stories, trying to get that voice out there.
I think it's definitely needed because you always want to have something fresh to look at, something from a different perspective. You know, here in America, you know, we usually only see American stories, but after so long, you know, the stories start to repeat, you know, because we're all, you know, pretty much having the same experience over time, you know. And I think it would be smart of Hollywood to start embracing Caribbean stories or other, you know, stories outside of the USA to just bring that element of freshness to the industry. You know, give us something fresh to look at. You know, actually, someone had pitched a story, an idea to me that was about a Caribbean family, and it immediately got my attention because it was different. It wasn't the typical, you know, family setup of, you know, your American family. So it immediately you know, caught my attention.
But would it be sellable? Would it be open? Is that a market that they're open to? Because it's already difficult, just the Black Americans, right?
I think, you know, it is tougher, but I would say as long as you have those key elements of what humans can relate to, regardless of where they live, right? You know, everybody needs to eat, you know, everybody needs shelter, everybody needs, you know, love. So if you have those main themes coupled with cultural differences, I think people, that connection can make people, you know, be interested in Caribbean stories.
Okay. So, ladies, you've accomplished a lot, and there's still more to accomplish in your lives. So, how do you motivate and heal yourself to hold steadfast on your goals and dreams? Because life happens. Look, we were supposed to have Tracy, right? She's the creator of Being Bobby Brown, and her mother transitioned, so she's not here with us. So now there's a healing process in the midst of other projects that she's trying to put out there as a successful executive producer and producer. I mean, you can Bobby Brown and Whitney Houston, that reality show was huge. That was her creation. But she's not here with us. And how do you hold steadfast on your goals and your dreams? Because working for Edmonds Entertainment, everybody knows her as the former wife of Babyface. Babyface is huge, right? She has, in her own right, has produced some successful television and films that we know today, and still going steadfast in her own right, right? So, but life is happening, death, birth, relationship. How do you hold steadfast in your goals and your dreams?
For me, I have to. It's a daily battle for me because one of my struggles is procrastination. So in order to, you know, beat that, I have to make sure that I write everything down, like all of my goals that I want to accomplish. I have to write it down, and I have to refer to it often. Because if I don't, then things get, you know, they'll get forgotten, or I won't think about them again until like 2 or 3 months later, and, you know, all that time has passed by. So I would just say, you know, whatever your goals are, make sure you keep track of it, and make sure you work on a little something every day to get you closer to that goal. And that's something I have to do every day because it is a struggle for me.
Okay. Kalima?
Honestly, I think that's a huge one right there. Most people have that issue. You know, procrastination. For me, I was told that I'm a people pleaser. And it threw me off. I'm like, no, I'm not. And my mentor, he was saying, well, maybe not in your day-to-day life, right? Which I know, I'm like, no, I'm not. But when it came to my art, because I'm so willing to help people with their stuff, he's like, it's stopping you from getting your stuff done. So therefore you are pleasing them because you have a lot of stuff you want to get done, but you keep on jumping on project after project. And then of course they're going to keep asking because they know they can have you help them, and also they need the help. But you got to say no at some point, that you
So
can
it
just
sounds
get
like
your stuff done.
boundaries. Like you have to learn to put boundaries. Yeah, I have that issue.
But it's tricky because it's like, but I'm working, but I'm creating, but they're paying me. But is that worth more than what it is you have to get done, that you need to birth? And even the whole idea of what I said earlier about an idea comes, it doesn't just wait for you to create it. It's going to get created. So either you're going to do it when it came to you, or you're going to miss out and be mad when someone else made it. And you're like, that looks just like my thing. Of course it does.
Exactly. So, and I know when we spoke to Bill Duke earlier, the way he responded to it, because he got into drugs and alcohol, and he was panhandling, and he had major credits, and then he fell into drugs and alcohol, but he got into transcendental meditation, and that shifted everything for him.
You write that one down.
Healing and staying on the path. So one more question, and I just want to open the floor to our audience. Is one word that describes who you are and not what you are. So you know your accomplishments and what you're still continuing to accomplish. But who are you? One word or a phrase.
Creative.
I knew you were going to say that. and it's true, but I have so many things I want to say. In one word.
Say a phrase.
Wonderfully made.
All right, beautiful. So now we're going to open the floor. Can we open up the floor and see if maybe we can take 2 or 3 questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
I do have a question from
Okay.
Angelina. Angelina says, would you recommend having a trailer or some type of film proof of concept along with the pitch deck?
That helps. That definitely helps. It's you know, something that it's another piece of something else to look at, because you may not have time to read a pitch deck at the moment. But if you have like a little 5-minute sizzle reel or something, you know, you can pop that in and, you know, look at it, you know, while you're multitasking. So I think that does help. Yep.
Okay.
I agree. I feel like it's one of those things where it can cost, right? So then it's like, do I really want to spend all this money to make something to go with my project? But you have to think it's an investment. And ultimately, I realized that it's helpful. Like, we are such visual learners, especially in the day and age of social media. People don't really care about hearing anything or necessarily reading anything. We just want to see, does it feel good? And does it resonate with something that I can then, you know, really see myself watching? So sometimes when it is more complicated, I would say definitely you want to have something to visually show, like the aesthetics and the vibe and the feel of what you're going for. Because if you're doing something that's super, like for me, I love sci-fi and Afrofuturism, and that's not always as easy to grasp, especially when a lot of times, although the worlds may be different, a lot of the stuff is the same. The things that the people are dealing with are the same as right now. So showing the world building, showing the characters and how they may be different would help a little bit in giving people some of a nudge to kind of better understand the story.
So basically, really invest in it.
Yeah, really invest in it, or really invest in someone like Rosalind to help you with an amazing log line. You know, so then there you go. It makes it so much easier than paying all that money.
Thank you for that great question, Angelina. We have some comments here. There are predators out there. Careful not doing the investigation. Preach, Rosalind. That's from Damani Brissett. And Edwin Frankel says, books you encourage we read that have been influential in your journeys. He'd like to know what those books are.
For me, I started out with the Bible, which is screenplay. by Sitfield. I started with that in college. And so, I read some of the other standards, like Story by Robert McKee, Writer's Journey. I forget the author of that one. And then Save the Cat.
Always classic.
Those are all the standards. There's a lot.
What about The Hero's Journey? I love The Hero's Journey.
Yes,
Definitely.
that's another standard. But yeah, there's tons of books on the market. There's one in particular, if you're interested in television writing. Can't think of the name of it right now, but I can, if somebody needs to know, they can email me and I'll look it up for them. But yeah, there are some great books on the market.
If you'd like them to email you, would you mind entering your email?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
I
Just put it in the chat. Thank you so much, Rosalind.
Well, first and foremost, always save the cat. Always find a way to save the cat and get that book, because you're going to be reading it and rereading it and then reading it again and write your script and rewriting it and reading it again, if you're not formally, someone who writes. But I will say one that I love that really helped invigorate me and realize the type of stuff that I even like to create was You're Gonna Need a Bigger Story by Houston Howard.
Ooh.
And when I tell you that book, it really explains how having your story is important, but then the sub stories and then the subplots and all the different things and nuances that make really, meaty stories that way is because understanding that there's always more than one story happening. That's why. It's never just the story. There's an A story and then there's a B story. And if you're really good, there's a C story too. And so I think when you're writing in that way, it's kind of hard to deny scripts like that, because he's talking about stuff like The Matrix, and things like Star Wars. And that's where you're going to have longevity with your characters that can then be bigger than the world, or vice versa, where the characters don't matter, like a Game of Thrones, where you're seeing lead characters get killed off and you're like, how? This is the main character, because it doesn't matter. The world exists, and now we want to see the world function. So it's kind of a book that teaches you about that aspect that I thought was very important. And I would say You're Gonna Need a Bigger Story. Okay. And after the pandemic, he actually started a podcast. So you get to see in segments how he breaks that down about different movies over time.
I want to share that Edwin followed up with, read those. Thank you. Cool. I mean, in regards to pitching. Any books in regards to pitching?
I don't know of any for pitching.
I know there's seminars, webinars.
Yeah.
I don't know about pitching. I mean, it's a lot of people offer like webinars and seminars. Yeah. But go to Tracy. Since Tracy's not here with us, go to her TikTok. She shares on nuggets on pitching. 1 to 3 minutes long. You will watch enough of them to really understand. She offers some jewels and nuggets. It's Tracy Baker Simmons on TikTok, and watch all her nuggets that she shares on pitching. And maybe messenger her and ask her for a book. I doubt it's a book, but I know she does offer a class that's, what do you call those classes that are already done online about pitching? So I would go to Tracy, even though she's not here with us, but she does offer nuggets that she shares on her TikTok.
I love
Beautiful. You ladies offered some major nuggets. I feel like I'm on the West Coast and 18-something going on my gold hunt, and I came away with a barrel full of gold. I'm rich.
Well, I do have one more thing to add to that about pitching. So I just started Screening Room LA back up after the pandemic. So it's been 2 years since I've done it in person. And this one that just passed was on Wednesday. Incredible. Just incredible turnout. We showed 3 films. So we always show content. Then we interviewed the filmmakers. And then I started incorporating a panel of executives. So this time around, I had Shay Franklin of 25/8. And then Amadou Sek from Macro. And he is in charge of TV programming, and he's the development exec over there. And she's the development exec, junior development exec when it comes to 25/8 and them getting new content. So one of the biggest things is I know people are going to have questions like this, well, what are the next steps, or what do I do now? And okay, but how do I know what they're looking for, what they want? So a huge thing for me, it's always about giving back to the community that I'm a part of. And so having them there, they were able to answer all these type of questions about what to do in pitches, what not to do. So if you ever have an opportunity to go to the next screen room, which will be September 28th at the Gathering Spot,
Can you
we'll
put
have
your
new
website in there?
executives. I would love
Website
to.
so they can follow you and go to your next events?
Of
Anybody who's
course.
on the West Coast.
And it's just cool because that's one of the biggest things I wanted to do is the next steps. You know, for me in the beginning, it was just about showing content and meeting people because I had been new to a market that I wasn't quite clear about, which was Atlanta. And so when I created it there, I was doing it every week. I was so intentional about meeting new people and building a tribe. And I did that every week for 2.5 years, every single Wednesday.
Wow.
Moved out here, I did it every month up until the pandemic for a year. And now I'm bringing it back. And I realized like, okay, the next steps of where I'm at in my life too is that, you know, like I want to be in rooms with people who know more than me, who can give me advice and guide me, and who also are in many ways the people who can help greenlight things and who can walk things in. So being able to get in front of those kind of people aren't necessarily that easy. So I knew like, okay, if I know someone, find a way to bring them on board so that way they can come give information. So if you ever see those type of people doing networking events, you have to go see them because they don't usually do that type of stuff. And they won't just take in general meetings and sit down and explain to you what they do and how they do it. So that's what I would say.
If you could press enter, then we'll be able to see it on our end. That'd be great. Thank you. And we have one more question from Crystal. How do we go about figuring out what to tell investors when it comes to getting a return? Is that something that needs to be in the pitch?
For investors, yes.
On our end, for Edmonds Entertainment, in the beginning, we don't tend to focus on that when people are sending in pitches at the pitch level. We're more so focused on, is this a story that we can, you know, sell in the marketplace? So it's a little different on our end.
And I have one more question that I missed from Damani Brissett. What are your thoughts of independent filmmakers using fellowships and grants they were awarded as a way to secure financing and confidence to invest in them?
Do they mean something they're going to just shoot themselves and then try to sell it to a company? Is that how? I'm not sure if that's how they mean it.
Damani, would you mind coming on the screen to clarify your question? Just type yes and I'll bring you on the screen.
Well, one thing I want to say to Crystal about the return is, like she said, for what they do and for companies, when you're going to networks, stuff like that, it's not necessarily the same thing as pitching to an investor. So one thing you want to do for an investor is, if you have your script, get it broken down and then get a budget made. So you can show the days out of days, you can show where all the money is going, and then you can bring it to an investor. That's very important if they're going to ask you for it.
Okay, so Damani, do you want to come up? Let me see. Did you say yes? Yes, you said yes.
Or do you also want to compare it to successful shows that might be similar to yours?
That should be in your pitch deck.
Yes.
You know, like similar things and what vein it's in and all that stuff, but definitely want to show them the budget of how much it's going to cost them versus what you think it's going to make, and versus, you know, if especially trying to get distribution ahead of time already, you know, secured, and that way they know they're going to make their money back. So stuff like that does matter.
Okay, so Damani, it's a little loud back there, so if you can ask your question, and there you go. Feel free to ask your question, Damani.
Yeah, I just meant, sorry for the background noise, but just basically, and hi everybody, thank you for your time. Let's say a filmmaker was awarded a fellowship, rather like a developmental one, or something in terms of, you know, script writing ability. It doesn't have to be a full production that went into production, but let's say a prominent nonprofit awarded them based off the merit of their creative ability. Is that something that filmmaker can parlay, that you feel as though a producer would actually see it as something significant to want to finance, or is that kind of moot? Is it rather them kind of taking a finished product, going on a festival circuit, more lucrative, rather than saying, I was awarded something like a grant? Or because I'm hearing different things from um, colleagues who have been awarded stuff from like Tribeca, Sundance.
Mhm.
You would think that association would be easy enough to get, something off the ground, but it's still hard for them. So that's why I asked this question.
Hmm. I mean, I think it can help by mentioning that. It does mean that somebody has taken interest in your story, in your project. So I definitely think it can help. Yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about that, because we usually don't get projects that way. So I'm not quite sure how to answer that, but I think it could help you in terms of like getting a production company interested.
So, Damani, ultimately, you're saying that if you went through a program or a fellowship and you were granted something or given money, if you take that money, go make your project, go to film festival route, or what's the other option?
Or let's say you weren't given money per se, but were giving like an educational route to kind of develop a project, rather than giving the funding to produce a project.
Yeah.
But because you were giving that space by a prominent establishment, could you use that as a way to say this establishment saw value?
Leverage.
Exactly, like
Absolutely.
leverage.
Especially when you say stuff like Tribeca and Sundance, that's complete. You need to put that on everything. That needs to be the first thing on your pitch deck, is that, this was something that was developed through Sundance or through Tribeca, or I was a fellow at this particular program. Like, there's a guy who showed a movie at Screening Room years and years ago, like in the beginning. I ran into him at ABFF. He's like, now I'm an AFI fellow, and my movie's an ABFF, and all these other things. But every time he does anything, he uses the last thing for traction for the next thing. So it's absolutely going to help you. And I would always, always, always encourage someone to go to film festival route. You need to know what that looks like and what it feels like to meet people, and for them to see your content and to revere you in that way. Not just as someone who is starting out, but no, I have an actual project. I'm already here. This may not be the project you want, but at least you know what I'm capable of. And you can start building connections that way. People can start tracking your, what you're doing with your content and how that looks. It just starts building a world around your professional career and getting you more access to people in different cities. And I think that's so important to do film festivals,
Thank you, Damani. I'm going to move you back into the audience. Thank you so much, ladies, for giving us your time. I mean, this has been a magnificent hour of share, and I feel blessed. I'm sure everybody here feels blessed by everything that you shared.
I did market you guys as these powerhouse women.
And
you put melanated powerhouse, but yeah, you guys have shared some gems
in here.
Yes, thank you. And especially where we are today. And there's a lot of post-traumatic stress, but you're pushing through, and you were able to really give us the time for these filmmakers. Thank you so much. You guys are wonderful. You shared a lot.
Just want to let anybody know, if they're looking to, learn how to write a log line, hit me up. That's one of my specialties. That's something that, people do look at. You send companies. So yeah.
Oh, and one more thing. So when I was at Screening Room, one of the execs said, what's a good way to follow up? Because people ask that, well, how much time? Well, one thing she learned from her mentors was that when you are following up and when you are, whatever you're going to say, be concise, get to the point, say exactly what it is you need or want, get to the point. But also, if you're going to send materials, don't send all those materials. Just send a log line. That's what they said. Just send a log line and nothing else. Thank you. Take your time. Look at it. Let me know if you want to see more. Let them come asking you for more. But that means you have to have a really strong log line.
Yeah, a proper log.
You have it.
Wow.
I did not know that.
Amazing. Yeah, log line is pretty much like if you're meeting somebody in the elevator, have that 1 minute. Minute pitch.
So you know the story about the Project Girls that was over at HBO for many years. They were in Brooklyn, and there's a lot of white women, but I'm like, what part of Brooklyn is that? Either way, that show got created from that woman writing her log line on a freaking napkin, and they greenlit it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the
The
log
log
line.
line is it sells you, and
Yeah,
it's
you have
very difficult to tell an entire story in
Mhm.
one sentence.
and,
One
and writing a log line is it's a talent. Like not everyone can, it's a skill. Mhm.
And Rosalind has that skill, so hit her up.
Thank
Put
you.
your website in the chat.
Oh yeah.
We'll be hitting you up, Rosalind. We'll be hitting you up. Thank you so much for your time, your energy, your talent, your beauty. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. You shed a lot of jewels, and
Thank you.
definitely, I'm glad we finally got a chance to connect.
Absolutely, Nadege. I'm so grateful. You're the host with the most, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you more and for us to keep
Yes.
creating for sure.
Yeah, my
If you guys
child
ever
got
need
sick
me
when we
for
were supposed to
anything,
meet,
hit
and it
me
was
up.
just like,
Yeah,
woo!
great questions. Great questions.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Robert is the
Fantastic.
glue. Robert's the glue between, that has allowed us to connect, and then I was able to. I was doing this for Magali, and it's, you never know.
You
Thank
never
you for
know.
the gift, Nadege. She gives us all an amazing gift.
Thank you.
I
Yeah.
want you all to give Nadege major props. Major
Oh,
props.
back to you. Just a
Major
reflection.
props.
I'm just a reflection. I'm just a reflection of we reflect each other,
That's true.
the reason why we're here.
Beautiful.
So thank you,
Beautiful.
ladies.
Thank you.
Be
And
beautiful.
and I'm gonna close out our conversation right now. I'm sure you all have nuggets that you took away. Write them down. I wrote all of mine. This is our final live event of day 2 of Conch International Film Festival. Thank you all for being here. And tomorrow we start with Franz Louis Benson's Crafting a Compelling Personal Narrative. Now I'm sure